Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Matt Willson Kickoff Show. It is the SFL Season 23 quarterfinal round. We're going to get that started tonight. Got a pair of games tonight, pair of games tomorrow night, and a lot of exciting action coming up. Looking forward to it. And we fixed the tear in the space-time continuum, and we can see the chat again.
Mike may have gotten his flux capacitor fluxing and got us right back where we needed to be.
I see Robert Thump. Good. I see Cliff Allen. I see the Lake Man in the chat. I see Tita Queen, Damon Simeon. There was even some more that already scrolled away. Zeeble, that's Matt Wilson's mom, for those of you who don't know, is in the chat once again with a bunch of hearts. Appreciate her being here for her son's legacy show here. So, hey, let's recap the wild card round, and then we'll get into some of these quarterfinal games. We've got about 44 minutes until kickoff. Can't wait to get it started. Although I am terrified for the second game, and I kind of want to just curl up into the fetal position and hide until tomorrow. But we'll see if we can power through a show first, shall we? So, hey, listen, wild card games started off with a bang last week. Saturday on the 26th, kicked off the playoffs with some style. We had Albuquerque at Carolina. Cameron Irvine and Charles Doherty on that call. Carolina, they ended up scoring first. Then Albuquerque was able to answer. Carolina would then retake the lead, and they never looked back. Albuquerque did hold Carolina scoreless in the second half, but it wasn't enough. They couldn't score on their own. Carolina got the win 17-10. That was a pretty exciting game.
Yeah, and it was, but it almost felt true to what we kind of said about how these teams, both teams played great at home, and both teams also struggled on the road. Albuquerque was the road team in that regard right there, and they struggled, and they almost had something to give him and everything else, but it just wasn't enough.
My quarterback, Jordan Sipe, is in the chat, and he says same. My QB can't. Listen, Jordan, you can't curl up into the fetal position, my man. I need you to throw the ball tonight. All right. Anyway, back on track. Yeah, Carolina obviously on the road in this next one they have coming up here later on this evening, so we'll see how they do. And then we had Charleston at Fort Worth in the later time block. Charleston bouncing back from their Week 15 loss to Baltimore, where they just got absolutely pummeled. Charleston was able to score first in this one, and then they got a second touchdown and then a field goal. It looked like they were just going to run away with it. Fort Worth actually clawed their way back into the game, and they took their first lead in the game with only 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Then an untimely interception gave Charleston one final drive, and they got the go-ahead touchdown with 23 seconds to left, getting the win 27-24. That game was amazing. Marcus Dunhill's final game as a player. He's retiring. Not how he wanted to go out, obviously, but wow, what an exciting game to wrap up that career.
Yeah, and that was good, and that was one where we actually picked kind of wrong on there. Yep. I do believe we both picked Fort Worth in that game, thinking that, hey, they were going to do it. They were going to end a streak, and what we said last week, right? I touched on a lot. Fort Worth was in all these streaks, and they actually ended with a 3-game losing streak right there to end the season. And Charleston, that's what they did. They clawed their way back and grinded it out, just like they've done for a lot of the wins this season. And now they find themselves in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Sunday games weren't quite as close, so I don't even know if we'll really break these down a whole lot. Arizona, they hosted Atlanta and got the win 20-3.
Well, the Bugs versus the Bugs, and the other bug lost. Y'all know the only good's a dead bug. Only good bug is a dead bug, and Atlanta was the dead bug on that day.
They were. Baltimore hosting Lexington. They just obliterated them 50-7. 2 weeks in a row now with 50-plus points for Baltimore.
It's crazy, insane. Like they're just peaking at the right time. It seems
they are indeed. So that'll bring us to an updated look at the playoff bracket. So you'll see the playoff bracket up there on your screen. We've got Baltimore and Minnesota in the top left, and then Carolina, Mexico City in the bottom left, Arizona and Florida top right, Charleston, Canton bottom right. You can see the times. Obviously, those games are later on this evening, along with the seeding rules. So basically, there is no further reseeding done now that we have hit the quarterfinal round, which means the winner of Baltimore at Minnesota would either host Carolina or they would head to Mexico City. And the winner of Arizona at Florida would either host Charleston or head to Canton. So obviously we'll break down all those games, but as you see them up on the screen, which one are you looking forward to the most?
I think the one I'm looking forward to the most is the very first one this evening right here between Baltimore and Minnesota. Look, and I like to look at like all these playoff brackets, right, no matter where it's at, and say, hey, look, who has the easier route,
Right.
if they win, and who has like the lesser opponents, no matter who wins. There is no way whatsoever that anybody has any
Nope.
easy route to win the championship. These are all stud teams to even get this far. And we're going to end up seeing how it lays out. But these teams are just cream of the crop right now, right? There's eight left, cream of the crop. So left.
So it'll get started later on this evening, about 40 minutes time. We've got Baltimore at Minnesota with Michael Chirillo and Eddie Gage on the call. We had to bust Michael Chirillo out of his professional broadcasting career and say, listen, I know it's just us, lowly SFL folk, but if you could be bothered to call a game for us, we would love to hear your voice on the air. I'm kidding. He chomped at the bit to do it. I'm glad he was available. So we'll hear Michael Chirillo and Eddie Gage on the call, Baltimore at Minnesota in just a little bit. And then at 10 p.m. Eastern time, Carolina at Mexico City, Jacob Clear and Anthony Ellison on the call together. That is our Monday night block. And then Tuesday night, the quarterfinals wrap up starting at 8:15 p.m. Got Charleston at Canton with Colin and Rick Northrup back on the call together. It's been a little while once again. It's been hit and miss whether we've had the Northrups in the booth, but they will be back tomorrow night, 8:15. And then the quarterfinals wrap up tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern time, Arizona at Florida with Tyler Falk and Brett Solberg. And then, of course, the semifinals just 5 days away from that at on Sunday, November 10th, 6:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. The pair of semifinal games, which will be determined over the next couple of days. So.
Yeah, and we finally get back in the booth in some playoff football type stuff. I know we do some stuff for the SFLM, but I'm ready to get back and do some pro games. Got another week-ish left.
A little bit left. Yep. So, all right, well, let's get into breaking down these quarterfinal matchups. We'll start with the last one, work our way back up towards the game coming up next. So we'll start with number 5, Arizona at number 4, Florida, tomorrow night at 10 p.m. A rematch from week 11 where Florida got the win 27-17. Both teams ended the regular season with a 9-3 record. Florida got that 4th seed and the first round bye with that week 11 victory over Arizona, knocking Arizona down to 5th. Listen, so Arizona didn't get the first round bye. Did it matter? Nah, they took care of business in that wild card round against Atlanta. They held them to only 3 points and earned themselves a convincing win. Florida, they're looking to get back to their 3rd championship in a row, but they haven't looked quite the same this season as they have in previous seasons. They've lost some games by some big points. They lost, 3 of them, 15 points, 20 points, and 21 points each. Arizona's losses, on the other hand, they've been a lot closer. Statistically, Arizona has outperformed Florida in several categories too. I'm sure you'll touch on that, but they are good at making adjustments to counter to what you're good at. Mighty Max Paul, he's a guru at sim football.
It's two championships, 2 back-to-back championships.
Yeah, there's a reason.
And what, you got like 3 more after that? It's 5-time champions there.
So can Arizona figure out what went wrong in week 11 and get the win, or will Florida beat them again? We'll start with Arizona.
Look, Arizona last week, they had a win in dominant fashion, right? Despite my assessment of their play versus lesser opponents. Their offense was extremely successful in the run game. They had the number 2 rush offense in the league, and their backfield combined for 211 rush yards, with Brad Jones accounting for 188 of those yards and 2 touchdowns. With the run game being that good, they didn't have to rely on Ashley Jackson to do very much at all, and allowed her to be able to stay mistake-free with only 16 attempts versus 45 runs. That's like just, I mean, the only way you run 45 times is if you're dominant on the ground, they were dominant on the ground. Look, and they're going to have to be a bit more balanced versus the defending champs for themselves to have a chance on offense right here, because we already know how well, and I'm going to touch on it here later on when I start breaking down Florida, how good they are at the run sometimes, of being able to shut down, like you said, being able to stop the opponent from doing what they want to do.
Yes.
Florida is one of the best at it.
You talk about Brad Jones accounting for 188 yards of offense by himself. Well, how about Arizona's defense? They were nearly perfect last week, only allowing 3 points and only allowing 184 yards of total offense from Atlanta. So Brad Jones outpacing Atlanta's offense by himself.
He not only outgained them, but he also outscored them by himself, right? And also on defense, they actually forced 2 interceptions, sacked the quarterback 5 times, 3.5 of those from DD Sacks, and only allowed 44% of completions from the opposing quarterback. They shut down the opponent in all phases of the games. Hall of Famer running back BDG Hollywood averaged less than 1 yard per carry.
That's domination.
Now, if you're able to shut down the opponent to run a game like that and force them in a situation they don't want to be in, that's very, very good for your defense. They will need to replicate that type of performance this week to be able to advance to the semifinals. In my mind, right? We know like the last times they went to the championship, right? They got there, they lost to Baltimore and everything else. But look, Arizona's looking to get back, but they're going to have to be really, really good on both sides of the ball to take down a team like Florida.
Absolutely. Yeah. Joshua Durr in the chat now, Alex West, Axel Raven, a few other people I've seen pop it in. Appreciate everybody being here for the quarterfinal kickoff show. So let's get into Florida's offense. You know, they just, like I mentioned on, my intro, they're not quite the same as they have been.
Look, and where they were, it was the third total best offense, right? And this was, and that was last season where they sat the number 3 best offense in the league. This season, they're 17th in total offense,
right? Below the middle.
Right. Look, and they also haven't scored as many points last year as this year as they did last year. Last year, they scored 30 points a game. This season, they're 11 points lower, scoring 19 points a game. But they still have the best quarterback in the SFL this season, Ron Coggin, who was number 1 in completion percentage, and QBR, along with having the second fewest interceptions among quarterbacks in the league. The run game has been serviceable as well, but with the bulk of the yards coming from fullback Chris Komisak, who has he had 600 yards rushing, over 600 yards rushing last season. He leads the team this season with over 600 yards again this season. So look, they will need to be in top form to get past the number 2 defense in the SFL in the Arizona Scorpions. So they're going to have to look. Arizona don't give up a whole lot of points either, but guess what? Florida doesn't score a whole lot of points. So what's going to happen right there? Somebody's going to have to give somebody got the best the other right there. So we're going to see once we get on the field tomorrow with these guys right here and see how it's all going to shake out.
The old unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. We'll see how they do. The defense, on the other hand, they've actually been a little bit better than they were last season, and Florida has needed it given the drop off in the offensive.
Yeah, look, and they are top, from top to bottom across the board on defense in all categories, along with being number 3 in points allowed, right? 3rd best in points allowed. So they're doing really, really good on defense, being able to stop them. And when you do that, right, it allows your defense to only be able to put up 19 points per game, and you're able to still win games. So look, I think I've said it a gazillion times, but they have the best run covering defensive backs in the league, and they will need those DBs to come up and play the line of scrimmage and stop the run, especially with the way they run last week with Arizona. I think they have the number 2 rushing offense in the league, and they're going to need those DBs to come up and play the line of scrimmage. But what does that do? At that point, maybe that's when they get the play action involved and stuff like that. Arizona against that. So Florida's got to be really, really cautious about playing the line of scrimmage to be able to shut down the run, just so they don't get beat over the top. But we're going to find out because they're going to need to bring it because, look, they're going to need to bring that defense to stop the number 2 rushing attack in SFL.
2 of the top 5 teams face off on Tuesday night. So also on Tuesday night, a little bit earlier on in the evening, 2 teams on different ends of the playoff spectrum. We have the top team remaining and the bottom team remaining. Number 10, Charleston, at number 1, Canton. Charleston has really looked pretty solid all season long. They were in play for the East Division title at times throughout the season, multiple weeks. Ultimately, they finished as the 10 seed, and they got themselves an impressive road victory over Fort Worth last week. I still have a hard time shaking that Week 15 loss, where they just got decimated. In conversations with Jacob Clear, he mentioned that they were just trying some different things that week. Obviously, it didn't work. I imagine they probably won't try those things again.
Pretty dangerous week to just try some things, and because there was a scenario where they didn't make it.
Right.
I think there was a scenario where they didn't make it. If all these some of the team went, but hey, they rolled the dice. And
listen, sometimes you did coaching. I'm doing coaching now. Sometimes you can outsmart yourself.
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows? But obviously a much bigger test this week for them against Canton. Canton did lose in week 1 to Baltimore. They did not lose again until week 12 to Nashville. And even that game was only 17-10. They don't lose by much. When they do lose, it's pretty much always by a single score. I actually checked to see how far back that streak was. It's like 2.5 seasons, because I actually thought Mexico City might have the longest streak of either a win or losing by only 1 score. Ours is also about 2.5 seasons. Canton's got us beat by like 2 weeks. So they don't lose by much if they do lose, and they don't lose very often. Charleston, they had a top 10 team in scoring and defensive points allowed this season, but Canton was 5th in scoring and number 1 in the least points allowed. They're just an absolute powerhouse. So does Charleston have what it would take to knock Canton out of the playoffs?
I don't know. And I think you've been counting out Charleston for a while.
Since week 9, was
I think
it?
week 9.
Our contenders and pretenders?
Yeah, so I think you've been counting out for
Oh, no, it's before that.
Yeah, so you was like, I don't think they got it. But look, here, they grinded their way there. Look, I'm in the same boat as you when these other teams coming up.
In the quarterfinals.
Right, so look, the Predators have scratched and clawed themselves to this quarterfinals and stuff like that. And what do they get as a reward for being able to fight their way through and playing that last game like they did? They get to play them one Canton. We already know what Canton's about.
What a reward.
Right, so they have gotten this far because they are just a gritty bunch who just get the job done. Last week, they played almost mistake-free ball.
Sorry, John.
Fumbled by John Lakeman. John. The Lakeman, he fumbled it. E.K. Vincent picked it up and ran in for a touchdown. So, look, outside of that one mistake, they played great.
They bounced back from that mistake, too.
Look, and the passing game was great with both quarterbacks being able to throw to who's their favorite target. And we've caught a few games there. When they get Xavier Solomon involved, they end up just taking their offense to another level. And they did that last week, right? Him being their favorite target. He had like 9 or 10 catches, well over 100 yards, and it helped their offense kind of get down and move down the field, right? Defensively, they forced the opposing quarterback into throwing 3 interceptions last week, which helped them get here where they are, and that's tomorrow night whenever they play Canton, right? So, look, and they will need to play mistake-free ball along with forcing turnovers to have a chance to beat Canton. And as we know, I'm not saying I've had the winning formula because I just got destroyed by Canton just like everybody else had over the last few seasons. But
I didn't get destroyed by it.
But what you need to do for them is to stop them from doing what they do best, which is run the ball. What you need to do is score on them early. One of their 2 losses are here. A team put up 17 points real early on them, and they couldn't come back because they had to rely on their passing game, which I've questioned a bunch. So if Charleston can do that, I think it gives them the best chance of beating Canton.
Well, John Lakeman, the Lake Man himself in the chat, he's saying, let me cook. Damon Simeon giving him a frying pan with an egg in it. So I don't think that he wanted breakfast, but, said his wife lets him cook sometimes. Hey, all right, cool. So Joshua Durr in the chat, though, he says he wants to be the Lake Man's favorite target. Says, I'll be open. I don't think that that's what he's looking to throw to.
No, indeed not.
Yeah. So Canton, listen, for the second straight season, they're the number 1 seed in the playoffs. Here they are again doing Canton.
Look, again, they're number 1 in a lot of categories. Number 1 in rush offense, number 1 in scoring defense, number 1 in rush defense, number 1 in sacks, number 1 in defensive touchdowns, and number 1 in overall defense. They have been top-notch across the board for the last 2 seasons, not just this season, the last 2 seasons. Look, they have absolutely no glaringly obvious weakness. It's hard to find their weakness at all in here. It's like Superman. You better run around with kryptonite in your pocket if you just want to stand a chance. Their offense makes you question who you are as a defense, and their defense makes you question who you are as an offense. They're very well coached, and they execute near flawlessly week in and week out.
Sure.
Now, and that's the thing they have to do with them being like that. Like, I know when I played them, I was questioning if I knew how to game plan and coach or just the way they shut down everything we did.
It's like, why does nothing work?
I said, I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do. It's like they had an answer for everything. It's almost like they actually got some sort of a spy, in your stuff, in your head, and they make you question everything about your team.
They do.
And your prep. What you thought worked doesn't work versus them. So you have to be on your game and play mistake-free to beat them. Look, and like I said, only chance team have is to stop the run game and score early and hopefully get yourself a 2-score lead. Canton struggles when they get behind by 2 scores. That's a easier said than done. It's a tall, tough task, but we're going to see how it's going to shake out tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, yep, 8:15 p.m. Eastern, that one gets kicked off. So let's get into tonight's games, shall we? Got a couple of great games on the docket for later tonight. First up, we'll have Baltimore at Minnesota. But let's talk about Carolina at Mexico City. Number 8, Skyhawks at the number 2, Aztecs. Carolina, they were at the bottom of the East Division multiple times, multiple weeks throughout the season. They ended number 2 in the East. So they bounced back, and they ended up as the number 8 seed. They've beaten multiple teams with a winning record, 3 teams that are still in the playoffs, including Florida and Baltimore, that are both ranked higher than they are. Winning record of 7-5 for only the 3rd time in their 23 season history. They're firing on all cylinders. They're doing good things. Like we talked about, they seem to do better at home than on the road, right. Much like Albuquerque was. And now they'll head south of the border, take on the Mexico City Aztecs in Estadio Matt Willson. Mexico City, 10-2 on the season, the number 2 seed. First 10-win season since season 7. That's a long time ago, man.
Damn,
I wasn't even in the league.
Was I born then?
Yeah, dude, you're old. So am I. We're like a month apart in age. So, yeah, we're old. I don't know why you got to go there. Listen, Mexico City only lost to Arizona and Ken, and they lost by 4 and 3 points each. That's it. Grand total of 7 points this season is the only losses that the Aztecs have had. Number 2 in points scored. Number 2 in points allowed. Number 1 in net points at positive 177. Confidence in the locker room, I can tell you, is sky high because, I'm in there. But this is the playoffs now, and the regular season no longer matters. Can Mexico City keep their winning streak going, or does Carolina take down another high-ranking team?
Look, and Carolina, right? We all know what I said about Carolina all week long. They were the pretenders that I said in week 9, right? And against all the odds I stacked against this squad, they made it this far into the quarterfinals to play the Mexico City Aztecs later tonight. When their offense plays mistake-free, they can be among the league's best offenses to watch. Mm-hmm. Sadly, to be mistake-free, they cannot depend on their quarterback, Matt South.
Right.
I hate to say it, but that's the truth.
It's the
Matt
stats.
South has thrown 20 interceptions this season with only 6 touchdowns to kind of go along with it. That's a terrible touchdown-to-interception ratio. When the offense is at its best, it's when they run the ball with running back Raleigh Quintero and Harish Prasad, who have a combined 20 touchdowns rushing on the ground, which is a league best. To be successful tonight, they will have to successfully rush the ball. Otherwise, it could be a very long night because I don't think Matt South is pretty. Look, he played really good ball last week, but they didn't have to depend on him to do a whole lot, right? So this is the thing. If they are going to be successful tonight, they're going to have to establish the run. And if they can't do that, I don't think Matt South has it in him to be able to throw past that Mexico City defense and push them to a win.
Well, let's get into their defense. Defensively, they're not great. They are middle of the road in terms of yards allowed. But the Aztecs will have to be careful because they are pretty good at taking the ball away.
Yeah, they are 3rd in the league in takeaways this past season. So look, and this is something that they didn't do last week in their win.
Right.
Is take the ball away. But they were able to pressure the quarterback when they blitz, getting 3 sacks all from Mojo McClain coming in there, wreaking havoc and all that stuff, and putting pressure on the quarterback would also help them, propel themselves to be able to win the game. They were also very well against the runs, only allowing 52 yards on the ground. Right. To win, they would have to stop the run and force quarterback Jordan Sipe, I know you love him, force him to beat them, which can work given their ability to take the ball away. But, and this is a huge but, they are not at home. They are playing on the road. We all know from last week, if everybody watched the show when we were lost in the space-time continuum, they are 1-5 in road games, so they're going to have to somehow try and flip that together. But if they bring their A game like they do at home on the road, we could be looking at a very, very interesting game tonight.
Yeah, and
even though you might puke.
I'm terrified. My heart's pounding out of my chest as we speak. I keep pulling the microphone away so that it's not picking it up. Listen, I'm terrified, but to have a little bit of confidence and not to toot my own horn, but Carolina's defense may be good at stopping the run. They're going up against Hall of Famer Ray Bentley and Jacob Morrison. And for those that have not been paying attention to the Aztecs throughout the season, Jacob Morrison has gone from, for lack of a better way to describe it, an average backup to starting caliber. I could start either Jacob Morrison or Ray Bentley as the number one back, and either one would do just fine. So to have the two of them out there back to back to back to back, good luck, defense. We'll see. Let's get into Mexico City.
Look, this team has been a surprise to everyone except myself and the Mexico City organization. Now, everybody knows, look, Mike and our friends, seeing Mike's dedication to the craft as an offensive coordinator over the past few seasons, it was an absolutely not a surprise to me to see the way they are when he took over a team a few seasons ago that were 0-7 and actually brought them some wins. Then last season, get yourself in the point where you're actually correcting everything and you figured it out. For you to come into this season, I saw the progression happening. 10-2 record does not surprise me. I really do think you should probably be 11-1, sit at number one seed, but things happen. I think a missed opportunity here and there. Look, this is where we're at. The Aztecs have the number 2 scoring offense, the number 4 rush offense, and the 7th best total offense in the league. So this team knows how to move the ball and produce points. They have scored at least 20 points in all of their wins this season. At least 20 points. I know there's a bunch of times my team didn't score a bunch of points and we still won games.
Yeah.
But look, and 20 points. That's something to be said. 20 points in all 10 wins. Look, they are a very scary team offensively. It's a team that if you had to catch them and beat them, you had to do it early on in the season, and not many could do it. You lost 2 games, and those were against 2 tough teams, which was in the Amarillo Scorpions, who are still in the right now, and the Canton Classics, who are still in there as well. So offensively, extremely scary. They can attack you from anywhere from the passing game. And one of the crazy things is how you get your tight ends involved as well. That a lot of people, I think, is underrated on your team. People look at Bentley and people look at kind of, all your other people, all the weapons that you have. But the tight end is something that I think might rear the ugly head for your offense tonight, but we'll see.
We'll see how it plays out. Christian Bachagalupi in the chat. His description of the Mexico City halfbacks could describe the Carolina halfbacks as well. 100%. Harish Prasad's come on. He's starting caliber as well too. 2 great backs on both sides. This is going to be, I think, a largely ground-based game, and whichever defense can get that run stopped and force the other quarterback to have to try to win it on their own has the best chance at success. So let's talk about the Mexico City defense. At least in my humble opinion, every bit as good as the offense.
They are every bit as good as the offense. They only allow 13 points a game, which is 13 more than you tell Ramos to give up every game.
I know. I tell him, hold them to 0 points. I will get you a win. I can get at least a field goal.
But think about it. Those 13 points got you the 2nd best scoring defense in the league. They have the number 4 rush defense, along with the 8th best total defense. What sets this team apart from the rest of the league from a defensive unit is that they are number 1 in takeaways, which is led by cornerback Liam Ryan, who is number 2 in the SFL with 7 interceptions on the season.
Best slot corner in the league, and I'd put him up against anybody.
And slot corners are severely underrated too. One of the best ones in recent memory I can think of is Parker Thomas, that was in Arizona for all those years, and the way Eddie Gage was able to scheme and get him involved. I think the same way Ramos is doing right here with these group of players that they have. So look, they're also best in the league in turnover differential, which means you take it away a lot more than you give it away. Right. So, and this is the thing, next to Minnesota and Canton, and now, as we know, the surging Baltimore Ravens, you guys are probably one of them birds. One of them birds. So look,
the red variant.
They are one of the most complete teams in the SFL. So look, and I'm calling that's 4 I can say from the final 8 that are left in there that are severely complete teams. Look, and I think that all of them have a lot of good things going on with them. But I think Baltimore now, as of late, has they proven it. Canton has done it all season. Minnesota's done it all season. And you guys have done it all season as well. These 4 complete teams have showed what they laid everything out on the table. And this is what you get. And this is what we're going to bring forward. Stop it. If you can, great.
Kudos to you.
We'll stop you what you do best. And here we are. I mean, it's going to be an interesting game tonight.
Yep, that one starts at 10 p.m. I'll be somewhere hiding under a table, I think. All right, so let's get into the game coming up Next, to get the quarterfinal round started, Baltimore at Minnesota. We've already touched on this one a few times. Let's get into it in a little bit more detail. It's another pair of 9-3 teams that are going to face off. Baltimore, they may be the number 6 seed, but they're playing like the number 1 seed and then some. If there was a spot above number 1, that's how they're playing. Is it somehow in that upper echelon of greatness that just can't be matched. They're number 1 in points scored, and it's not even close. 411 points scored through the regular season. That doesn't even count the 50 that they dropped last week, by the way. 411. The next closest is the Aztecs with 334. Like, we're almost 100 shy. They just beat Lexington 50-7. Minnesota, on the other hand, they started off season 23 with a loss, but then they have looked just absolutely powerful ever since. Heck, even in that week 1 loss, it was a close matchup, against Indianapolis,
right?
And Indianapolis just squeaked out the win in the end. In their 3 losses this season, they've only lost by 6 points, 2 points, and 3 points each, respectively, throughout the entire season. So talking about 1-score loss teams, Minnesota right up there with them as well. They've beaten some really good teams, including Baltimore.
Yeah.
So the week 3 rematch, I should say. Minnesota won that one 44-31, but they've also weirdly lost to some, bad teams, like now 4-8 Indianapolis and 4-8 Chicago. They lost to the Dragons as well, who were 6-6. So which team is it that's going to show up tonight? Is it going to be the 44-31 week 3 Minnesota team that beat them, or is it going to be the team that just lost to Chicago, lost to Indianapolis week 1? Like, which one? The scary thing about Baltimore for me, for all those Star Trek fans out there, right? They remind me of the Borg. Okay. And we talked about how Florida can adapt and they'll figure out what you do well. They adjust and they shut it down. Baltimore's got that down to an absolute science. They're like the Borg. The Borg, when they're under attack, they adapt. So they'll analyze what you do and then they adapt to it. You adjust your offense, they adapt. You adjust it again, they adapt again. You adjust your defense, they adjust again, they adapt. They will analyze everything that you've done throughout the entire season and figure out how to shut all of it down and run all over you, throw all over you, and just look at the points they're putting up. It's ridiculous. Can the legend keep their winning ways going? Or has Baltimore looked at that week 3 loss and the rest of Minnesota season and adapted for tonight?
Look, and Baltimore, right? You said a whole lot about Baltimore, and I can't disagree with any of it. Because look, they have been extremely dominant over their opponents the last 3 weeks. Offensively, they have scored an average of 45 points a game over the last 3 games, and have only allowed an average of 7 points over that same 3-game span. They'd allowed 7 points last week, 6 points the week before, and 9 points the week before that.
Yep.
The last 3 games. So look, and like I said, they've only allowed 1 touchdown during that same span. Quarterback Chad Wigmore has been great as well, throwing 5 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions over these last 3. The run game has been top notch as well, averaging 158 yards on the ground over those same 3 games. The defense has gotten 5 sacks and picked the opposing quarterback off 9 times in 3 games. 9 times. That's 3 a game. And guess what? 3 of those turned into pick sixes. So they're also averaging a defensive score 1 a game, right? So look, with an offense and defense playing at such a high level, they look unstoppable right now and will look to avenge that week 3 loss to this same Minnesota team. So they have a lot going for them. It's like how like when you see teams going to playoff, they're hitting that stride right at the right time. They are peaking at the right time right now. They proved it last week with that dominant win, putting up 50 and only giving up a touchdown. This is a very, very scary team. A number 6 seed is kind of hard to think of the way they've been dominant.
I know.
At a number 6 seed. So if I'm Minnesota, I am going to be kind of scared right
I'd be a little nervous even with that week 3 win. But listen, the Legend, they're one of the best teams in the SFL. There's a reason that they are the number 3 seed. The question for this team is not if they can win in the regular season, though, but can they consistently win in the postseason? I know that in our research, we noticed that postseason's been a question mark.
Yeah, look. And
they've made it there.
Right. So, through 4 playoff appearances, right? Yep. This season not including, you have 1 playoff win. Just 1. Right, which means they sit at 1-4, right? Because they have won a game, right? But to be elite, you have to win in the playoffs. right? You have to do it. They was one and done up until last season where they won a game, got to the semifinals and lost. You've only won one game in your history, and they've had some really good squads over that time, right? So look, let's give this squad some credit though. They have the league's one of the league's best passers and TDs and league leaders, right? Yeah, he actually leads the league in touchdowns and quarterback Johnny Reno, the rushing leader, running back Colin Hart used to play for Louisiana, used to play for the Sioux Falls Sparrows, and they went off to wherever, and maybe they flew away. I don't know. But look, and they also have the number 3 scoring offense. They have the number 2 total offense. And let's not forget the defense has the number 6 scoring defense, only allowing 16 points per game, along with having the number 3 total defense. They're also number 2 in sacks, number 4 in takeaways. On paper, they have championship type numbers.
That's how you win.
As they did last season, but because they had very, very similar season last season. They went 10-2 last season, right? So, but can they get through this surging, really, really hard Baltimore team and get that signature win, right? Let's call it that signature win in the playoffs to even give themselves confidence. Because I do think a lot of teams even go into playoffs and they kind of question themselves. Hey, can we do it? Man, we lost so many times we got into playoffs. We're not have been really successful. We're a good regular season team. When we get to playoffs, we just kind of stumble because we're playing nothing but elite talent. This is a very elite Baltimore team that they are playing here in just a few minutes. But can they get past the Baltimore Vultures to get that signature playoff win and reach the semifinals?
Yeah, and that would be the signature win that they would need to really answer that question because, they are a great team. Can they win the championship? They got to beat a team like Baltimore to show that they can. If they beat Baltimore, whoever's going to be playing them, say they make it all the way to the championship, they're going to look back at this week in the quarterfinals and be like, man, if they could stop a team that's been putting up 50 points consistently, we have a tall task ahead of us. So it's, and if Baltimore wins this matchup, whoever's going up against them is going to be like, how do we stop that?
If Baltimore wins this game and they put up 50 points, I'd take my ball and go home because I don't want to see none of that. And I know nobody's going to do that, right? Because it could very well be your Mexico City Aztecs playing them. But still, it's like, man, they've just been so great and they've been so clean in every aspect of the game. They're just a very, very dangerous team.
All the Bleeker in the chat says it's like Goliath versus Goliath. Yeah, I think so. 2 heavyweight.
That's true.
Teams go against each other about 8 minutes from now. Let's get into our picks, and then we'll send you down to the field to get this quarterfinal round started. I've regained the lead. How can that possibly be? You had a substantial lead.
Maybe I was coming to terms with the Revs not being a thing, and I got all my feelings making these weird, emotional, edgy picks.
You did.
Chad Rowland let me down week after week after week. Believe it or not, but believe it, Chad, if you're ever in a game, I'm picking against you because you let me down with your Indianapolis Ramblers.
I'm 25-16 now. You are 24-17. I've got you by 1 single game. At least we both have winning records. It means we at least picked more than half the games, right? Still 6 games left to make picks on, including the 4 games tonight. Last week you picked Baltimore, Atlanta, Fort Worth, and Carolina. I picked Baltimore, Arizona, Fort Worth, and Carolina. And, of course, Baltimore, Arizona, Charleston, and Carolina got the wins, bringing us to our current records. Let's get into tonight's games. Got Arizona at Florida first. Who do you got?
I got Florida. Now, I just at this stage right here, I can't pick against the former champs because they just know how to win when it matters. Eddie Gage, nothing against him and his team and what he's done, but Max Paul and that Florida squad, they win games when it matters. You cannot win all the championships and playoff games that they have won by not being able to perform in the playoffs. So they know how to do it. They're probably taking it in there like it's some sort of a weird preseason game or something like that. And coming in, it's just another playoff game. We're just going to roll through them and get to where we're going and doing stuff. So I cannot pick against Florida.
Yeah, I also am picking Florida for all the reasons that you said, and the fact that they're playing at home. They know how to get things done. They've just won 2 championships in a row. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Florida's going to get the win in the end. Charleston at Canton.
Look, Charleston is a scrappy, grinded out type team, but I just don't think, and it's going to hurt me to say this, I don't even think it's going to be close, right? Because they're going to have to play a perfect game. And what Canton does to teams, they don't allow you to play the perfect game.
They do not.
They dismantle everything about your offense and your defense, and they make you do what they want you to do, is just constantly make mistakes. and I think Canton is going to do that to Charleston.
I also am picking Canton in this one. So another pick that we're picking the same. Canton is just the number one team for a reason. Jacob is booing you in the chat. He's going to be booing me in just a second when this actually comes through to his screen in Australia. I'm sorry, Jacob, but Canton is a really tough team. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it will be a closer game, but I do think that Canton wins by at least 10. Carolina at Mexico City.
Well, everybody knows I love Harish, and I love picking against him. And guess what? I picked them last week, and then his hometown squad from another team calls my hometown squad from another league to get fired. Thanks for that, by the way. So here we are. But this is the thing. Carolina has had a great season given what they got, but they cannot win on the road consistently, and they are on the road. Mexico City, not because Carolina is on the road. Mexico City is way too strong of a team. Yep. Given the matchups, the way Carolina matches up with Mexico City does not favor Carolina at all. Everything about Mexico City has been on point all season, and the only games they lost have been really, really close games to two of the teams that are left in the top 8 right now. Everybody else, they're seemingly just railroaded through, even though there's a couple of close games here and there. I think Mexico City runs it away by at least 2 scores.
Shout out to the Prasad brothers, Michael Truillo, Chris Curtis, Skippy Curtis, everybody on that Carolina squad. Probably one of the best group of people assembled on any roster. I'm picking Mexico City because I'm standing in front of their flag and don't have the team. I don't know if I really got to get into any more detail than that. Go Aztecs. Baltimore at Minnesota.
This was one of the tougher games, and I really like how this is the first game that is actually on tonight, because this is, I think, the most interesting matchup. You got 2 freaking big monster trucks heading toward each other. Which one is going to leave the other one destroyed? I don't know. But I have to pick one here. Now, seeing how Baltimore's put up a ton of points the last 3 weeks, they're just surging right at the right time. They're peaking at the right time on both sides of the ball, because their weakness up until the last 3 weeks, in my opinion, was their defense. They were giving up way too many points and everything else. But guess what? They seemingly have corrected that right at the right time, shutting down teams, only allowing 1 touchdown to their opponent over the last 3 weeks. Yeah. I think they take it right here, and I do think they put up another 40 points on Minnesota. Even though they have a really good defense, I think Baltimore puts up 40 points in Minnesota. I love Minnesota. I love everything they got going on there, because they do have one of the best running backs in the league ever. But I just don't think they have just enough to stop this freight train that's the Baltimore Vultures.
And I'm still going to have the lead no matter what happens in the quarterfinal round, because I, too, much to your dismay, am picking Baltimore. Listen, I saw Minnesota play against Chicago. I saw Chicago beat Minnesota. Chicago just simply outscored them. What is Baltimore known for this season, and especially over the past 2 weeks? Simply outscoring their opponents. Now, they've done so by obliterating their opponents. I don't think they're going to obliterate Minnesota. I think Minnesota's going to hang in there. I don't think that they're going to win the game. So that's our picks. Shout out to our producer, Cameron Irvine, for giving us 45 minutes on this show. We'll give him back 2 minutes of his time. So we'll actually end on time technically, because he gave us longer time. Thanks, Cam. Appreciate you.
He's the man. Let me talk.
He is, yeah. All right, Baltimore, Minnesota coming up next. Who's going to get the win? There's only one way to find out, as Matt Willson would say, and that's on the field. Michael Truillo, Eddie Gage have that call. Starts in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you on the field.